Okay, this is Matthew Brasel, and yeah, the couch looks out of proportion to the character. It looks too big compared to the size of the character, so you probably want to scale that down. Um, as do the chairs and table. I mean, normally an adult's feet wouldn't hang off the ground of a normal sized chair. It makes them look like a small child. Um, it looks like you've got a few textures here and there. It looks like you have some weird procedural projection texture on your character. Um, let's take a look at the scene file. I can't see your textures, and I don't think what you sent me is an archive scene file. If I look at um, the what you sent here, um, so it's got that folder, and then it doesn't have the scenes directory. It doesn't have the source images directory. It has this folder called textures, which are in there, but your texture images should be in your source images directory of the Maya project that you're working within. They shouldn't be just sitting out in a folder called textures. They should be in the source images directory, and you should be working within a project folder which has all the subfolders in it. And I looked at here, and like for example this one, this file name, it says fabric. It's in a folder called textures under week 10 under 3D modeling, on your desktop. So it doesn't look like you're working within a project folder at all. But even so, if you did an archive scene file, it should give me everything I need and the connections should still work. The way you do that is to go File, Archive Scene, and then I'll just say yes, continue. And then I can see here's where it's putting that in my case. And then it's this zip file that you would send me. You would send me that zip file that archive scene creates, and that should have everything linked up. I mean, as it is, I'd have to go in here, so I'd have to browse, go to the textures, go to fabric, and like relink it, and then I'd have to like find this one and find that, and then wood, and then browse, and like relink them one by one. I'm not sure why the stone's called wood. Um, so this wasn't properly submitted, so it's a little bit hard to um, judge. But yeah, I think the first thing is get the furniture scaled to the size of your character. Make sure you're working inside of Maya project where your scenes files are in the scenes directory, your texture images are in the source images directory, and keep everything consolidated in there. No, you shouldn't have files anywhere else but in your Maya project folder. Um, that was gone over in, I don't know, one of the first modules. I think maybe module 1. I can take a look. Um, this is a long time ago. Um, Setting up and using projects, module 1, page 6. So this describes your scene file, project. This explains all this right here. So this is module 1 stuff. So please go back and review module 1, page 6 for that information. And make sure you're working within a Maya project. And your images are in your source images directory. Yeah, and this looks a bit large. These stones. I mean, if you look at the size of the character, like that would be pretty enormous on a character. Um, and it doesn't look like you VMAP stuff, or it's hard to tell. What have you done here? Yeah, I mean, this wall has the same texture as the cabinet, and the scale is the same. I mean, to me, that scale, that if that's the grain of the wood, that doesn't like that's the grain. That's if we're seeing the individual panels and the individual grain in the wood. This is maybe I don't know 10 feet here, but the texture is representing what you would see in just a few inches of distance. So the scale's really off on that. So I think you need to work on the textures in that regard. But I think that that's a little bit that kind of. I mean, what you would see is you wouldn't from this distance you wouldn't even see the really the detail of the wood grain. You might see the individual panels and the seams between the panels, but you wouldn't see the wood grain. And also, I mean, what I would say is really pick an area here that you want to have your scene set and then just add detail that area because you've got a fairly broad set and maybe you don't need this stuff. But again, I mean, if this is a refrigerator, look at the size of the refrigerator compared to the character. Now, the other thing you can do is you can scale the character up too. But whatever you do, everything needs to be proportional. So, you know, let's say, I don't know, maybe that's a little closer. Let's see if he can sit down here. That seems maybe about right. Maybe he could be a little bigger. But even then, um, if we, uh, you know, that's an awfully big refrigerator, even with this now scaled up character. Like I think it's unusual for a household refrigerator to be taller than a grown man, usually, um, or at least much taller. So yeah, I think you really need to look at the scale of things. Generally I use the character as my sort of measuring stick. But so have the character be one size, and you can scale them up if you want. That's a starting point. But then measure everything compared to the character to keep it consistent. So yeah, I think this needs some work. And I think you don't even have to build even this much of a set. You don't have to flesh out this much. Like you could just do, you know, from like here over, you could do, put some pictures on the wall, windows, put some molding on, and that kind of stuff. Or alternatively, you could kind of just do this. You could just do the kitchen because we're doing just a very short scene. You just need a little bit of an area to act in. So it'd be better to kind of really flesh out one area than trying to build kind of a whole apartment.